There's a connection between dissociation and disembodiment and whether you wear glasses or contact lenses, and this is very niche, very speculative psychology, so maybe you can disagree with me, but if you look at things like bioenergetics, Alexander Lowen, Depression of the Body, and also his book The Fear of Life with this classic 1970s front cover, which is maybe a bit too hot to handle on YouTube, there's a point about the eyes being a sensory organ which makes contact with the world, and this is a criminally under-investigated aspect of self-identity and ego formation. Many complex ideas in this video, but it's a bit of a spontaneous moment, and I'm about 25 minutes between client sessions. I've got this little bit of a gap, and I was just on a client session with another client, another male client who, like me, doesn't have the best eyesight, and we're exploring these themes of making contact with the world, and I thought this would be a great video because I personally have -5 to -6 vision, which means I can only see about that far clearly from my own center of gravity until the world starts to get blurry. And if you ever pause to think about this, pause to think about what it's like to be a child or an adult trying to make contact with the world, but the world is blurry, what does that do to your identity at a deeper level? Because the eye is not just a tool of extension, it's also a tool of receptivity. In fact, it's interesting because you normally think about the eyes just taking in, but the eyes also express outwards. You express emotion and feeling and sentiment, and some would even say your very soul can be seen in your eyes. You communicate through your iris, and you also get communication from the world in the world of exchanged looks from your mother, your father, your friends, your lovers. They look at you, and in that gaze you get reaffirmed. You get affirmed as either being good, bad, or anywhere in between. And many forms of good in form of powerful, attractive, charismatic, or funny. There's smiles, there's humor, there's status, there's admiration. If I look at you with a feeling of admiration, it's more of that feeling. If I look at you with a feeling of attraction, it's more of that feeling. If I look at you with a feeling of happiness and joy, it's more of this. Very subtle changes in my eyes, but also contempt, feelings of disgust, feelings of hatred. My face changes around here, but also my eyes change. We communicate so much with the eyes. And the point that I want to make about glasses and contact lenses and how this relates to identity formation is that if you don't have reliable and consistent contact with the outer world, especially if you're a child who had bad eyesight, there might be some interesting avenues for inner work inside yourself where you look at the importance of making clear contact via vision. Kind of rambly, kind of excited. Again, I'm between client sessions right now. I don't know if I'll even post this video, but it's something that I want to kind of throw out there as a random video to at least kind of trigger something inside your mind that may be the reason that you struggle with depersonalization, derealization, or otherwise feeling dissociative is because your vision is poor. People blur together. If you've got bad eyesight, the background is all fuzzy and foggy, or maybe you're in the situation, these are blue blockers, not actual glasses, but you're in the situation where you've got this band around your face, and if you look at things like bioenergetics in detail, please study the work of Alexander Lowen, you will notice that you've got a certain narrowing band with your glasses. It creates a sense of restriction, and it's not the same somatically, experientially, as not wearing them, which is why we have contact lenses. And this fun little phrase came to my mind in the client session of contact lenses, because they have contact on your eyes, but you also make contact in the world without this barrier of plastic and glass and metal all wrapping round this focused band. And you have to think, this is really out there thinking, so again, unscientific as it may be, but what might be the consequence of a young child or maybe a teenager who's wearing a focusing band like this? Consciousness is wrapped in round here. They're far more likely to be disembodied because there's a split, there's a literal split, there's a fragmenting on their face, there's this feeling of being wrapped around, and I know it's not the most scientific, it's more of a speculative video. But just experientially, if you want to join me in the thought experiment, what's the consequence for 20, 30, or 40 years having something which is pinning you in at this level, creating a point of pressure in the same way that if someone was always pressing on your hand like this, you'd have more consciousness in your hand. If someone was always gently pinching you on the side of your cheek, you'd have more awareness here because there's a point of sensation. It's the same as if you're wearing jewelry, if you're wearing a watch, you're wearing a necklace, you're wearing some kind of item of clothing, maybe even your wedding ring. What happens to someone when they're married and they've worn a ring? The ring itself develops a certain thought form, it develops a certain point of contact and a thought form. And the glasses, they have a certain connotation, and so do contact lenses. It's just something for you to consider exploring in a little bit more detail. For me personally, a bit of a fun moment in my own personal story. I didn't get contact lenses or glasses until the age of 10, and I already had minus 3.5 vision, which if you don't know anything about vision prescriptions, I could see about as far as my arm's length clearly, which meant that throughout my entire childhood experience from at least the age of 4 or 5, the whole world, the playground, the schoolyard, even the faces of the parents and the family members and friends, they were all a little bit blurry at distance, and it's no wonder that I struggled so much personally with dissociation and derealization. The world was literally a blur. I had these moments when I'd be at the playground and I'd walk up to a group of people who I thought would be my friends, and only at the last moment I'd swerve out the way, not that aggressively, but as a 7-year-old maybe I did look a bit awkward and weird of walking up and I'd say hello, just triggering memories in my mind. I remember many moments of going up in the playground, being age 7 or 8, and going to a group of people and saying, hey, so-and-so, hey, John, hey, Jill. No one that I know called John or Jill was like, hey, Jill. I was like, oh, that's not Jill. It's like, oh, hey, John. Oh, that's not John. It's like this crazy world where I couldn't even know what was going on. Of course, it's going to lock me in. And if you had a period of time in your life, like me, where you were a child who was without prescription glasses and you couldn't see the world, just think about those years of experience which may be completely repressed, completely lost into unconscious territory, and what that does in terms of your ability to make sense of the world and feel safe in the world. You're not likely to feel very safe if the world is shifting and reorienting because you don't know if John is really John or Jill's really Jill. You can't see danger out there. And also then there's many therapeutic opportunities, and this is something that I did during the lockdowns in 2020. I went for walks, I went training, and I did a variety of things around the house without my contacts in. So although I again only have very limited eyesight, by reading in the sun I eventually strengthened my eyes, and again this is maybe pseudoscience, you can't even heal your eyesight, but you can to some degree. Your eyes are an organ and you can heal the organ of your eyes through a variety of practices. Again, I'm not going to go into all of that. This is something that you can leave out there. I experienced subjectively an increase in my eyesight capacity over the course of about 3 or 4 months by not wearing them and focusing on reading in the sunlight. But as soon as I went back to screens and short-sighted visionary tactics and not using my eyes and strengthening my eyes by looking into the vision, I'm not going to go into that. And there's a variety of things that you can do, but then this video is already controversial enough as it is. I'm just throwing around a variety of thought experience ideas again. No question for this video. Very organic, very spontaneous. I feel really inspired by this client session, and maybe in about 6 months' time I'll make a more sophisticated version of this video where I really bring forwards a presentation. But I think I've got about 10 minutes until my next client session, so I'm gonna rehydrate, recaffeinate, maybe not recaffeinate, it's a bit late, I'm gonna make a cup of tea and then drop into that session, and I've got another session after that, so I'm just gonna do that. I hope you're having a good week, and yeah, consider the impact of your glasses and your contact lenses and the potential dissociative effects or lack of contact with the world effects it might have. And once again, Depression in the Body and The Fear of Life by Alexander Lowen for some bioenergetic reads to really expand your conception of self-identity and have things, such simple things as, I don't know, whatever. Video's over. I'm going to go do the session. Hope you're having a good week.